Welcome back to another great episode of the Banking Book Report here with the Banking Bros at the Cash Compound. We're talking through one of our favorite books to help us understand how to save and spend money at the exact same time. And that is Nelson Nash's 5th edition of Becoming Your Own Banker. It's time to talk about bank robbery. Jonah, what's the topic today?
Yeah, we're facing his chapter or header of Willie Sutton's Law. So join us and it'll be fun.
We're back here talking Willie Sutton's Law inside the Banking Book Report series. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about this notorious bank robber as described in Becoming Your Own Banker, R. Nelson Nash's 5th edition here. So Willie Sutton was an American bank robber. And what is that famous quote kind of Nelson gives us, Jonah?
Yeah, so the famous thing is basically he finally got captured, I think, or he finally got arrested or whatever it might be. And they asked him basically, why do you keep, he robbed like a bunch of banks, I think.
I think so. I think notorious, prolific guy.
Why do you keep robbing the banks? What do you keep doing? And his famous quote is, well, that's where they keep all the money.
Wherever wealth is accumulated, people, folks will come try to steal it. You might even steal it from yourself.
Yeah.
And that's a little bit of the human problem. Once again, this is part 2. We had a episode. If you haven't seen it, jump on over there and see it. It's called Parkinson's Law. Here's another piece. It's called Willie Sutton's Law. And it's, look, wherever there has been profit, wherever there's been money, stewardship, economics have been happening, that someone's going to come try to take it away.
Yeah. So the law itself is wherever wealth is accumulated, someone will try to steal it. And so the way that it relates to banking, the reason we're talking about, the reason it's in Nelson's book here, right, is because a lot of times that we do that to ourselves. We accumulate the wealth, and then we do things in our actions that we take with the money, with the wealth, where it's actually just stealing away future earnings,
right,
or stealing the money that we have, putting it in places where we can't get access to it, all sorts of stuff, right? And so that's what we're going to dive into and chat about, just some of the ways you can avoid that, some of the things that you might not be realizing you're doing, you know, when it applies to this law, and how you can, you know, make better decisions and move forward, especially when it comes to banking, and kind of tie that all in.
Yeah. And the other big aspect is that the government has tried to do that
for a long time,
against you for a long time as well. So there's the human problems, the ones that we have to fight internally with ourselves, with our budget, with our families, with the opportunities of all the commercialism that's around us, and also what the government has done, maybe that's completely thrown you off and you don't realize they're stealing from your opportunities in the future as well. So let's start with let's start with the government. Let's just talk about that one.
Cool.
So where the government has a department that's specifically designed to come get your production.
Yeah, the IRS. Internal Revenue Service.
Now, just the other day, I was talking to somebody, as we're taping this right now, we're thinking about fall 2021. I was just talking to somebody, and I was trying to remind them that the name of the department is revenue. It's the government's revenue service. Their job is to get your money.
Yep.
Their job is not to educate you. Their job is not to massage you. It is to come get the dollars that the government says you owe them. And I think that right there is worth talking about, because some people don't even realize that. Oh.
Right. It is a little crazy. I will definitely say in this episode, right, we're going to chat about the government and giving them money. And I think we both are on the agreement that it's not that we think we shouldn't have to give them money, or not that we're trying to avoid that, right?
Sure.
But it's about giving them as little of our money as we possibly can.
Pay what we owe.
As we move forward.
Pay what we owe, but don't pay more. And some of the other things we've done at different times, some of our courses, you've heard us say we have some tax experts and friends that you can link into, or you can see this anywhere around the internet. Most people are well overpaying what they need to actually pay the government. And like we said, pay what you owe, but after that, I mean, it's yours. Go ahead and keep it. You earned it in the first place.
One of the things that opened my eyes, one of the most, to kind of just this fact of they're collecting, and you need to pay what you owe, but don't pay more, is like, there's a quote, maybe you have the numbers on the tax code, how long that is, and then the exemptions. And how that works. Yeah.
So number one, we're talking about over 90% of people. I've heard from several different sources, depending on who's quoting, that over 90% of tax-paying Americans are overdoing it.
Yep.
And the tax code that came into play, we'll get into this a little bit more, but the tax code came into play just over 110 years ago, around 110 years ago at this point. But the tax code is around 12 pages.
Yep.
So a dozen pages. But everybody's like, hold on, I don't understand 12 pages. That doesn't seem right at all.
Seems like we should understand that.
Yeah,
pages,
exactly.
right.
Like I could memorize 12 pages if I really wanted to sit down and go over this. Not that we have, I'm just saying. But this is what folks don't understand is when government puts in something like that, which Nelson called onerous taxation, stuff they should not be doing, they can smell rebellion. And they can sense when people are like, look, I'm not doing that. See, prior to 1913,
when the tax code was introduced.
Exactly.
Right.
There was no income tax on a annual scale that came to come get you. It didn't exist prior to that. So your great-great-great-grandparents would have thought it was completely unconstitutional. There's many people who still believe it's unconstitutional.
Yep.
And they've just added those things into the addendums and stuff like that. And so anyway, prior to that, there was no tax code. They put it in place. It's around a dozen pages, but the exemptions, that's what people don't understand. All the things that you can do where the government says you do not owe us this money is if you do this, you start this, you go here, you donate this way, that way, or whatever. That is 1,200 pages.
That's crazy. That's the one that kind of opened my eyes and blew my mind. Wild, right?
Oh,
1,200 pages of how you can get out of the original 12 pages where you owe us a bunch of money.
And the reason that they put those in place is, number one, the government is here to help. There should be here to help stimulate the people contracting with each other. So we should be able to continue doing that type of stuff. We're a little bit free thinkers out here, but you got to think a little bit differently to understand Nelson's infinite banking concept to people. So we should be contracting freely. The government should not inhibit on that. And so they have put in all these things. Well, you don't have to give us the money if you're contracting with people in these ways.
Right.
So we're very interested in taking a look at some of those things. And there's some we've gone into in other episodes, some very common things that people should be doing, like owning their own business or something like that.
Sure. And so the chapter, Willie Sutton's Law, the chapter in the book, what he's pointing out, just like we talked about, wherever wealth is accumulated, someone will try to steal it, right? He points out to the government inventing this tax code 100 years ago.
Right.
108 years ago?
Yeah.
Inventing this tax code that now wealth is accumulated with the people, and now you have to give some of that to them. And then, of course, because they are inventing this tax code, they also, just like you mentioned, kind of invent the loopholes when people start to feel like, I don't need to give this to you, right? And so he talks about qualified plans. He talks about 401ks. He talks about HR10s. He talks about IRAs, all sorts of stuff. And here's what he points out, and this is huge. This is part of the realization that I came to a while back, right? They invented the tax code and they made the rules for all the exceptions. So while it's an exception now, that doesn't mean it will be one next year because they made the rules up, right? They can change it. Again, you just mentioned your great, probably not even two greats, grandparents, right? Maybe one, maybe. I think so. 1913, one, right?
Okay, so you and I have the same, so we should be able to figure that out. We have a great grandfather born in 1900.
Perfect.
So he was 13.
So one great. Those folks would see the IRS, the tax code, as being unconstitutional, and why would we do this?
Straight up theft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now it's past a few generations, and we don't see it like that.
No, we don't. No.
But that's what it is. That's what's happening, right?
But we're kind of stuck with it.
We're kind of stuck with it. We're not saying avoid it.
But we're just trying to, like I said, like Jonah's saying, reopen your mind to these ideas that don't you feel like they might be manipulating the system? That's a word right here from our guy, Nash. So let's talk a little bit more, though. You started to go down that rabbit hole a little bit about qualified plans and understanding those. So there's a lot of people out there who listen to us who are currently participating. They're not necessarily business owners. They're working a job. They are contributing to those things.
Yep.
Okay, but the government kind of has control of those things, and those people kind of don't.
Yeah, I wouldn't say kind of. I'd say 100%, right? I think Nelson calls it in his book a fox guarding the hen house, basically, is what's happening, right? One of the things that you've got to understand is these plans weren't introduced simultaneously. That's a big deal, right?
Okay.
They introduced what I'm saying is they didn't, here's all 1,200 pages of exemptions. It didn't just show up one day and someone wrote it, right? They introduced them little by little because they're introducing them when people start to get the rebellion in them, like, why am I doing this? Why am I giving this to you? Why can't I have a way out of it? And then they introduce Plan 1 or Plan 2 or whatever it might be, right? Yeah. So I think even the newest one, man, I'm going to forget the dates, and I hate that. But I think one of the most prolific qualified plans is going to be the 401k, right? But I'm pretty sure that 70s. Was introduced in
70s,
60s or 70s.
Late 70s, I believe.
Okay, cool. Yeah. I was going to say late 60s, but you might be right. Okay. Late 70s.
All right.
Do you realize how recent that is?
Yeah.
They just made that up.
Many of you listening out there have parents and grandparents who are still under the pension style.
Exactly.
Right? So these other ways, and here's another thing. We just got to go into this for a second, because whereas wealth is accumulated, it can be stolen. When you participate in these qualified plans, a lot of people call it saving for retirement. That is not even a correct way to say that.
Not at all.
Because where is the money? In the 401k, what are they invested in?
Their stocks.
Stocks. Okay, can you save money in a stock?
No. Impossible.
Yes, it's an investment into the company.
And the investment implies risk and implies
holding your money, and someone else has control of it. You've given it to them and their commerce, their business, to be able to exchange that money and hopefully go up. But that is not saving. That's not even the definition of saving. Right. So you getting us kind of fired up right now, talking
it's just
through
a little crazy, right? That they invent the rules and then they make up an exception to the rule, and then a few years later, here's a little different exception, and people are like, these exceptions is the best thing ever, and it's like
you need to go for them. You need to go for them, because that's how you keep your own money. Like, these exceptions are the way you keep the money you earned.
Sure.
So jump in there and figure out some of these. Also, when you try to take your money from these programs, what happens?
Well, they penalize you or tack you with fees or all sorts of stuff.
So if you're putting your money over there and you think you're saving, we already debunked that myth. Second, you feel that it's your money, then why are you getting penalized or fees if you move it?
Right. So Nelson says, the real solution is just to quit the government programs. You know what I mean?
This man was legit, he was not having it with that. Lots of you out there are participating in several programs that you're going to keep doing, and that is okay. We just want to help you crack the code to cash flow and help you understand, hey, these are some exemptions, or these things which banking is outside of the realm of these qualified plans. Remember that 200 years ago is when the whole life insurance industry and the programs and the contracts started to come into place. That was before the tax code. Yeah, so these things are not a function of the American government. You don't need to worry about it. And of course, all the cash growth that you have in cash value is not income taxable. Neither is a death benefit for your family and friends.
Yeah, it's just a big deal, right? Even the companies we use were around and profitable before 1913.
Years before, including dividends. We only use mutual companies.
So that's a big deal, right? I mean, I took, those words to heart, quit the government programs, right? I stopped contributing any money toward that stuff and started putting in somewhere that it was safe, that I could control it, that I didn't have to worry about the penalization, the fees.
Yes, and it really was saving because you had access to it, and it's contractually obligated to be available to you.
Exactly.
So that is saving.
Such a big deal.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gents, that is it for today, our banking book report on Willie Sutton's Law. Join us again for others as we go through Nelson Nash's book, as well as following us on a bunch of different platforms out there so we can help you crack the code to cash flow.